So, is flexible working secretly damaging the productivity of your team, of your staff, or is it actually one of the smartest moves you've probably made in your business that's making a phenomenal amount of difference, increasing performance and productivity? Let's answer that question. Let's have a look at what the latest government data is really saying on how flexible working is working in our businesses right now. So, if you've not met me before, my name is Mike. The company is Cavill, and we help and support businesses just like you, helping you, the small businesses, whether you'll be within healthcare and social care, whether you be within charity sector, whether you're within marketing, advertising. You name it, we're here. We help you. I've been doing this jam for about 20 years now. May not look like it, but I have been. Thoroughly enjoy what I do. And today, I want to start looking at how we can break down what the government's 2024 report is saying on flexible working. I want to see what it means for you, for your business. And also, I think if you do, drop in the comments, by the way, if you feel that this is something that you're not feeling in your business and how flexible working is working in your business. If you feel that what the government report is coming out doesn't align to what you're seeing on the ground, let me know. Drop it in. Let's have some kind of discourse on that and see what's happening. And I also want to see whether it's actually helping or hurting productivity. You know me, productivity and performance of our teams is something that really underpins everything that we do here at Cavill. Because if we can higher performing staff, higher performing people and teams, you get a better business, the end users get a better product or service, and everyone seems to be a lot more happier within their lives. That's got to be good, right? It's got to be good. So those are the fundamental things. And I've just alluded to by the way, about leaving comments and messages down below in the discourse. This is a podcast, so I keep forgetting to say that until the very end. So you can get this on YouTube, the tube of you, or you can download it on a podcast on wherever you get your podcast from, to be quite frank with you. So you can go ahead and do that. There are links in the descriptions below, so you get helpful tips and bits and information, and you get them much faster than you would do through the podcast itself, which is great. So please come along, join us, and get involved. That would be great. And equally, if you are seeing this as part of our articles and blog posts that we put on a regular basis, then please remember below the video is the article and is the blog post that gives you a lot more depth and information as to what I'm going to be briefly talking through in this podcast and video. So let's get on with this. Let's have a look at what the government report actually says. So I'm just going to read through some of these findings quickly, and then I want to kind of open it up to a large degree for us to really think about that, let that marinate and digest for a minute. So some of the findings are that about 40% of organizations have seen an improvement in their productivity, their performance with home and hybrid working. Only 13% saw a reduction. Over 75% of managers believe flexible working is actually helping to increase performance. And this boosts motivation by about 60% or more, and concentration, I think, by over 50%. 89% of employees have actually said that they find flexibility more motivating in their role than money. And that comes from HSBC. I just leave that there for a minute. So 40% of organizations saw improvements in productivity through home working and hybrid working. 13% saw a reduction. So over 75%, I think it was, of managers believe that it's actually increasing performance. Now, on the field, from what I see from talking to a lot of businesses throughout the year, I think I'm not sure I entirely see what those stats are probably saying. That's what's been reported, and I don't always think that that's down to the flexible working process not being something that's viable or something that's not working in people's businesses. I think there's a lot more to come on that, which I want to bring on to later. But I just think it's quite eye-opening, because when you talk to a lot of businesses like I do, and that's why I'm asking how you feel about this in your businesses, I think it's going to be hit and miss. I think they're going to have people probably at that level, I don't think higher, and people that are actually below that level as to what they're experiencing in their organizations. So home working, hybrid working is a great thing, and it's here to stay. As soon as COVID hit, it's not going anywhere. That is the way of the world. That's where we are. And just because you have home working, hybrid working, doesn't mean that doesn't work with business. Doesn't mean that you can't perform or increase performance through those mechanisms. And it doesn't mean you can't keep culture and community. There's a balance to be had there. And I think that's where a lot of businesses do find the friction, and why some would fall below that 40% that have seen improvement and more closer to the 13% that saw a reduction. So somewhere in the middle, I think is what I always say, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. But in terms of 89% of employees and finding it more motivating than money, that's something I find really intriguing to me personally, because we're always looking, when we're talking about productivity and performance, we want to relate that to something. So we want to be able to, when you look at performance, you fall somewhere, probably I would say three areas is where it can fall, which is poor performance, which is where we always spend all of our time as managers and owners. We focus and we look at that constantly to see how we can actually stop that and improve it. We very rarely pay much attention to high performance because we naturally think that will take care of itself. But then those high performers don't get any attention, and that causes a huge deficit where those people are sitting. And in the middle, you've got your floaters, which sounds awful to say them like that, but you've got the people where they're just doing enough to just get by. They're not great performers, but they're not by any means bad performers either. They're just in the middle. Um, and what we want to do is create a recognition for the high performers that creates a great FOMO effect, that these people are getting recognition, not just more work from what the bad performers can't do. They're getting genuine great recognition for the work and productivity and performance they're producing. We want to enhance that. These are our super troopers. We want to keep them, guys and girls. So how do we do that? So we want to give, good benefits to them. Well, in this, it's saying that increased flexibility, flexible working options is a good benefit that potentially doesn't come with a high level of cost as an employer, depending on what we're talking about, that could benefit higher performers. So the better performing you are, the looser those reins get, so to speak. So if 89% of employees are finding that more motivating than an increase in money, well, that says quite a lot, and that's giving more freedom to people's lives, I would guess. But I would say for us as practitioners, as employers, and as managers, we should probably be looking into that and seeing, well, how can we take something from there and apply that to our businesses and to our strong performance? So that's something I definitely would look to do, and definitely say that we should probably be looking into. It's very high though. I mean, nearly 90% find flexible working options more motivating than money. It's just not something I would have thought. So it's interesting to get those figures out. And then obviously those are the benefits for employees, but then what are the benefits for us as employers? So recruitment is up by 30% more applicants. Retention, especially for parents, carers, older workers, you can see obviously flexible working will work extremely well for those groups. And if you watched last week's video, then obviously you'd realize we were talking about parents. The majority of employees within our workforce are parents, and those that aren't are highly likely to be. So that's a big section of our employee base that we're talking about there. Reduced absenteeism and turnover. I think that does make a lot of sense to me in terms of those things, especially with the absenteeism, and improved skill retention and well-being. So you're getting more sustained performance because the retention, you're keeping those skills and everything else within the organization. It's just working much better for you in your business. So, I mean, the key point here, which we'll come on to again in a minute, is there is a quid pro quo to play here. There's a benefit for employees, which we all know and we can all see that, but there are equally benefits for employers, which I think sometimes by the way it's either working or not working can kind of mask some of those benefits that we can actually feel and that recognition we can get, or what we put as recognition. So, increased retention sometimes not always something that people oddly enough consider as a key benefit for organizations. Yet it really is. It really is. Keeping those skills within your organization absolutely is. But again, there's a healthy level of retention, right? So it's playing on that quid pro quo that there are benefits for obviously the employees and for us as employers that we want to look at, which is resonating with actually how this is working on the field, for all of us. And again, what I would ask is, do you agree with that? Is that something you actually think you are feeling those benefits as an organization? Are you seeing that you are able to get more applicants for roles because you're advertising you have flexible working options. For example, hybrid working, home working available, or other flexible options that you might have as well that you're employing. For example, flexi working, all those different things. If you're putting that out there on your applications, equally, it'd be interesting to hear from you if you do it, but you don't put it on your applications, on your advert. Sorry, why would that reason be? So again, give us a message, put a comment below. Let's get engaged and let's see how this is actually working in our organizations and whether this is actually resonating with us or not. It'd be really interesting to see what that comes back with. So, in short, for us as organizations, flexible working is not about giving up control. This is that quid pro quo. This is where we get to there are things that are yins and yangs that go with this. So flexible working is not about us as employers and organizations giving control up. It's not about eradicating that sense of control. It's about creating a situation where you can have win-win conditions set up with your employees. It's used as a key, as a mechanism to make it a thoughtful, fair process that aligns with your business. Now, the key thing there is it's about not losing control and aligning to you. And if we do this well, it can absolutely increase productivity, it can absolutely increase retention, it can absolutely increase performance, reputation as an employer, all of those things, which is all great. But it's not always like that. There are frailties within that process, and what I would say is again, when we come back, look at those stats. I think some of them are quite high. For me, from what I'm feeling on the ground, working with businesses, I feel that's quite high. I do see the potential and the benefits of flexible working, which I would always advocate for, but I can also see how there are particular elements of flexible working that don't work in all businesses or within all teams within all businesses. And I definitely like the thought process of being able to utilize that as a promotional kind of process internally for those higher performing staff that can get more access to more flexible options. I think that's a good thing to think about outside the box within our teams. But there is definitely that quid pro quo. And in this, I think the key thing for all of us is, again, flexible working is one of those things that for me, and this is just a me thing, by the way, it feels like the one element within employment law that seems to be consistently evolving and changing. So it's going through different iterations and cycles of different bits and pieces that are going to be coming into that. And again, that's going to change more into the future. And it's only just recently changed again anyway. So I would say in lines of that, definitely review current policies and procedures. Review how they relate to other elements and policies that you already currently provide. Consider roles that would be more open to flexibility, so where you can apply that, and other roles where it's less something that's available. For example, working in a warehouse, hybrid working might not be a great idea, but if you're working in an office, it might well be. So I think it's horses for courses, but I think one of the things that definitely does miss in businesses is trying to think that there's an overall arching approach to everybody in every team equally. And I would say sometimes there are some roles and some teams that lean more to certain elements of flexibility than to others. And I would also definitely look to see how you can kind of offer forms of flexibility as a promotional kind of a factor to help and support those that are the higher performing staff. If you're interested in saying, well, how do I quantify, how do I evidence who's higher performing and who's not higher performing? Who are those, God forbid, the floaters? How do I quantify where they exist and who they are? Because, quite honestly, in this world, it's really hard to quantify the data and output from people, especially depending on the roles are always different. Not one role is always the same, potentially. Well, there are ways of doing that. And if you're not with us already and our productivity booster, then definitely give me a message and come back and let me know, because we can talk you through how you do that. But once you have that in place, you can definitely align more flexibility and promote that to those higher performers within your team and create that FOMO effect of when other people are looking around going, well, how come Mike's getting this awesome kind of deal on flexible working and I'm not? And that's a great question, because Mike's doing this, and this. We need you to align more to this and this levels of output to be able to achieve to get this. And that's where it comes back to your managers. So your managers are the front face with your staff, the machinery within your business is making this function. And they need to be on their game to be able to recognize and to be able to support staff through those processes. In other words, we're measuring what people are doing. We're measuring the shit people are actually producing and getting out, whether that's, getting spreadsheets done, or whether it's getting enough widgets made, or caring for X amount of patients and making sure everyone's up and ready in the morning or ready into bed. Whatever those cases are, we want to measure what the outputs are in people's roles, and not the hours that they're completing. So I think I've mentioned this story before, but we used to have a client who used to say home workers are home shirkers, and I just think that's just a phenomenal phrase, right? We're just gonna say everyone who works from home is a bit of a shirker. That's not true, and you're measuring the wrong things, because what people in that mindset tend to think is, if I can see someone at a desk, they're working. But that's not necessarily true. I can quite easily sit at a desk for 7.5 hours of a day and not do anything and produce anything worthwhile of any use to the business whatsoever. I will be bored out of my nuts, but I can do it. I'm positive I can do that. But because I'm working from home doesn't mean I'm not working because you can't see me. You can have a person in the office who you see doing less work than the person you can't see. What it is about setting what those output levels should be, regardless of where you are, whether you're working from home, on a beach, in the office, in a loft, wherever it is that you are. I want to make sure these levels of outputs are being hit, because that's what matters to me as a business. It's the production, it's the output, it's the whatever we're meant to be producing to support our end users, clients, whatever they may be. Measure the output, not the hours, and training managers to monitor that. And that's what we do through the productivity booster, of course, which I just mentioned a minute ago. But if you review your policies and you have that support and training for managers to understand them better, understand how you can promote those and offer those promotions to high performing staff, and how you can monitor if you've got high performing staff, or indeed flip this around. If you have someone who is working hybrid or working from home, but the level of productivity is poor. So I was talking to another business recently where they allowed the person to work abroad for a number of weeks. There's a lot of reasons behind that. I won't go into those now, but they did. And that's great. And we've known a number of businesses that have done that in the past. But when they did do that, their level of output, productivity, and also the quality of the work dropped significantly. And the funny thing is when that person came back to work back from the office as they were meant to, the level of performance dropped. So, sorry, the level of performance dropped whilst they were away, but when they came back, they asked for a promotion and for more money. Whoops, sorry about that. So that's the outcome from that. So they've gone abroad, productivity's gone down, output's gone down, quality's gone down. They come back and they ask for more money. And being able to put a quantitative figure on what that actually meant on that scale of their performance and how that went, and being able to present that back and being able to say why that's working or not working, is something that's quite powerful to us as organizations. So if we do provide flexibility, just because that person's got that flexibility, these things are there to support us in our work lives, they're to support you in your home lives to a degree, and give that balance between work and home. But it's also, you've got to bear in mind, this is a privilege. So if it's not working and the person's performance is dropping and their quality of output is going down, you might want to utilize these stats as a justification and a reason to have a conversation as to whether the flexible working option is something that should still be applied and is working. Because if you're having those issues, then yes, having someone close to hand to give more support to is probably better than having them further away. So having managers trained to recognize those different things is definitely going to be helpful. So if you at the moment in time are still not sure if flexible working is for working in your business, in your teams, if perhaps you've heard the figures I've just read out and you think that's just so far away, Mike, from what we're feeling in our business with flexible working, it's a problem, then I would say there's something wrong there with what's happening. Get in touch with us and let us know. So it doesn't cost anything to have a chat. Click on the link if you're reading our article at the bottom. If you're watching us on the podcast or video, then click the link in the description. And when you come through, you can book an appointment with us and we can have a chat and go through how we can help you in more depth and detail and answer any questions you've got on this, and to make sure you're fully compliant, that you're building things that are practical, that work for you and your business, that you're not just doing things that support everybody else, but actually aren't supportive to to the business and the functionality of what you're trying to achieve. And trying to create a high performing culture with a happy, well performing team would be a good thing. So if you're looking to get more information on that, then again, come back and let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.